Alright, I've got all the bolts out of the bearing carrier on both sides of this rear end. Remove it in just a second. The manual says to pull those bearing carriers off. There's one bolt in there, just kind of hold it. And then the rear end will just come out of the rear housing. So, let's see what we got here. Alright, that was a long process, but what happened is the bearing cap got stuck in there and I couldn't get it out, which wouldn't allow the bearings to slide down out of the way that's on either end of the rear end. So that will allow me to get to my input shaft that's gears on it. It's got a problem. So I'll slide that thing out of here and it'll just barely fit in there. So it should come out right out the rear end. Alright guys, tonight I'm working on the bearing carriers for the 4-pinion rear end, and the 4-pinion actually has two different ones. The early models had the same bearing carrier, but the 4-pinion had two different sizes, and you can see that. So if you're taking those apart, make sure you know which side goes where. So in this case, this is my left side as you're sitting on the tractor. So got to inspecting it, and the race in here is eat up pretty good. So I'm going to be putting a new bearing on that, and then a new seal as well. So easy way I found to get the seals out is to get a socket that'll fit your seal size, and then you can just drive it out. You don't have to worry about damaging anything. So there's my seal. I drove it out just fine, so that'll get replaced. It really doesn't look that bad, but when you spend about 16 to 20 hours worth of time getting to this point, you might as well go ahead and replace that small seal there. So the issue I'm going to have on this race is getting it out of there. So there's two detents on either end of the race. There's no way to drive it out from this direction. You just can't get in there with the way this is set up. So what I'm going to end up doing is installing it back on the tractor with the 6 bolts, and I'm going to use a slide hammer that's got a hook on it that I should be able to hook up underneath the lip here, and hopefully we'll get the thing worked out. So once it gets out, then I'll be able to drive the new race in and the new seal in my bearing carrier, and it's going to bolt up right there, and then that should give me a good solid holding force so that I can use a slide hammer right here with a little hook on the end and try to pull that race out of there. So let's get that thing slid back in. Got it back in. You can actually see now this section that's all scarred up. So I'm going to put some of my bolts back in here. Alright, so it actually worked quite well. And here's my race. It's pretty bad shape. And again, all I did was just bolt that into the housing. So The reason I had to use a single puller like that is there's only two, place there and a place there, that you can get a puller in there. So I just used that slide hammer with a hook to get it out. And again, you can't drive from the backside because this hole here is too small to be able to get back in there with a punch to drive that thing out. So that worked pretty good. We'll get that taken back out and get it back over to the bench for the new one to go in. Just pulled that race out. I got a new one that's going to go in. So I want to just make sure this is good and clean. Alright, so I got a new bearing set through Agco. So we'll be putting this thing in right. Okay, I still got to go in maybe a 1/16 of an inch. So I'm gonna, I don't have a socket or anything that big. So what I may try to do here is actually use the old race to drive that in. I don't think it'll get far enough where this one will want to actually stick in there. So it's down, so basically that thing is ready. I've got to get a seal to go in there. Here's my new bearing from Agco. Get that installed on the other side here. That fit right in there. Not quite ready for that yet. So we'll get a seal, we'll get this in, and then we'll put a new seal on the other side as well, over here. Seal on this differential bearing carrier. Got my Agco seal. Part number is 702-44169. Pretty straightforward. Just going to drive this thing in here. We'll go ahead and just get it started. Alright, so you just drive it down until you're flush here on this side. There's not anything to set it against. So that's the left hand side. New race, new seal. Got that one completed, and it'll be ready to install as soon as I get the 4-pinion rear end set back in there. And then this is the actually that was the left, this is the right hand side here. I'm going to drive this one out. Get that one out of the way. Alright, looks pretty good. Looks good. Alright, next step I'll be putting the 4-pinion rear end. We'll set these in with the spacers, check clearances on it, and make sure we're good. Nothing's really changed here except for the race on that left hand side and bearing, so I'll have to double check my shims to make sure that the clearance is set properly on that. The other side will just be as is. I haven't made any changes whatsoever to that. So our next step is going to be pulling out the pinion shaft that feeds into the transmission gearing. So we'll get started on that on part 3 of the transmission rebuild. Please hit like and subscribe and leave a comment below. And make sure you turn on your notification bell so that each time a new video is posted, you'll be notified.